My name is Nancy Havletzel. I'm a member of the Government Affairs Committee, and you probably are aware of a lot of the things we do because our chairman, Herman Sperling, gets on OCA often announcing things that we're doing. One of the things that we were doing was the flock cameras that you all know about. And when we were meeting with the sheriff and two of his deputies about the flock cameras, we got into a conversation with one of them about Project Lifesaver, which sounded to me like something that we ought to learn about. And I said, would you come and talk to people at Carolina Arbors? And so as a result, today we have Lieutenant Jones. As soon as I heard Lieutenant, I know she's high up, so I'm impressed. And she's our Project Lifesaver point person. In the meantime, I will tell you that there was a story on WRAL about a man who went missing, and they were looking for him in Durham, looking everywhere, and they found him almost immediately in the woods. He was an older man who'd wandered off from home and wandered into the woods and was lost. They found him in about 3 hours. If they had not had Project Lifesaver, he would have been lost in the woods for weeks. They would have eventually found him with cadaver dogs or something. But that's what Project Lifesaver does and could do. And I just thought it was really important to bring it here. The other thing that I will say, and I'll let Lieutenant Jones reiterate, if you don't need Project Lifesaver, but you have a neighbor you think would be helped, you can notify the sheriff's office and they will send someone to speak to that neighbor about becoming enrolled. So this is not just for the people sitting here, it's for, and you know Carolina Arbors, we all watch out for our neighbors. So if you have a neighbor you think might be interested in the project. And then this is going to also be posted online on our YouTube. It's being recorded by our wonderful volunteers and staff. And so if you get a chance to forward the link to somebody, once the link goes up, if you don't think you want it, you think your friends might want it, then please forward the link to that person because it'll be really important. It's literally a lifesaver. So with that, I will introduce Lieutenant Jones from our wonderful sheriff's office. And I will just make an aside comment as a member of the Government Affairs Committee. The sheriff's office has been marvelous to Carolina Arbors. They really, really, really pay careful attention to us and protect us. So this is Lieutenant Jones, and she's going to take the microphone away from me.
Thank you. I think it's still morning. Yes, good morning. As she said, my name is Lieutenant Tisha Jones. I've worked with Project Lifesaver for the past 8 years now. I'm going to give you a brief history on Project Lifesaver before I go into the spill of what it is and how it works. So, Project Lifesaver was started in Chesapeake, Virginia by by Captain Gene Saunders of the 43rd Search and Rescue in Virginia. Obviously, we're talking about Virginia. We got plenty of mountains and stuff. He had a big concern because a lot of hikers and stuff were going missing. Being on search and rescue, he wanted to figure out a way, how can we find these people a lot faster as opposed to the grid search, calling out all the resources. He came up with Project Lifesaver. Using Project Lifesaver, instead of having to call out all these resources, all this manpower, spending all this money, you've got equipment, which I'm going to show you all, that eliminates majority of that. Usually, most finds happen within the first 30 minutes, as long as we are called and contacted as soon as that person goes missing. So since April of 1999, there have been over 4,000 rescues using Project Lifesaver. Like I said, the average search is about 30 minutes. There are approximately 1,720 member agencies. That's in 50 states and 9 Canadian provinces. Okay? Benefit of this is if you're traveling and your loved one is a member of Project Lifesaver, call that state Everybody loves to go to Florida for vacation, right? Call Florida. I'm not sure offhand how many Florida has, but hey, I'm traveling for a vacation. I'll be there for a week. Does your agency have Project Lifesaver? If they say yes, you give them your frequency number. You have less worry about your loved one wandering and being lost for a long time if you know that they can be easily found, all right? That agency's on alert. Usually they'll notify everybody else, hey, we've got a visiting person here. This is their frequency number. If we get the call, they know how to act. We had a family that was displaced out of Raleigh. They were placed in a hotel right on the border of Raleigh-Durham. They called us, said, hey, we've got one of our guys who's going to be in Durham County. This is their frequency number. Just in case you happen to get a call, we just want you guys to be aware. It makes a big, huge difference. All right, so with that said, Project Lifesaver is designed for adults and children with any type of cognitive impairment. That can be Alzheimer's, dementia. We have a lot of our kids have autism. We actually have one for the first time with a TBI. So it doesn't matter as long as you have a doctor-diagnosed brain disorder or any type of cognitive impairment, and you show proof of that, you fill out the paperwork, we can get you signed up. It's a real easy program. All it is this simple receiver. And this is an extra one, so I can pass it around so you guys can see it. For the kids, to make it easy for them to wear and comfortable for them to wear, we call it their watch. So a lot of kids know that when we come, every 2 months we change the batteries. Hey, we come to change your watch. It makes it a lot easier. For the most part, you wear it on your wrist. It's just like, the bands that you get at the hospital. They're not as thick as those. However, it's like a nylon type band. It straps on like that. You have to cut it off. You can't just pull it off or unsnap it, which is a great thing for the kids. Usually the kids that do pull it off is because they've gotten smart and found the scissors, and they've managed to cut it off. But let me start over here. I'll pass this around so y'all can see how easy it is. But that's all it is. Everyone is assigned their own frequency number. We have that down. We have it listed. So if your loved one goes missing, you call and say, hey, I'm on Project Lifesaver. My husband or my wife or whoever went missing. This is the frequency number. We get it activated immediately. Of course, we ask that you call the police first, notify them so they can immediately get out there, and then they call the members of the Project Lifesaver team. Usually that's me. I'm the most local one. Regardless of whether I'm working or I'm off, I'm coming out. A lot of our clients, I have their number saved in my personal phone. I allow them to call me whenever they need me, whether it be for a battery change. I've got some that call me to kind of talk to the kids if they're misbehaving. I try to get familiar with all of our clients. It's a good thing. I don't know if any of y'all have ever dealt with kids with autism or anything like that. It's a trust thing, right? They work off of people that they trust and they know. So the more that I know your loved one, the more they see my face, the more they see our faces, the better it is. So if we go out to find them in the woods, they're not just looking at a bunch of strangers, they're going to see a familiar face. That's why I try to make sure I make a personal rapport and relationship with all of our clients. So you've got the transmitter, we put it on you, you give us a call, we come out. I'm going to let you hold this on my side. So those are the transmitters. This is the receiver. This is the PLI 3000. We have an older one that looks like an old school house antenna with all the big things sticking out, like the old school rabbit ears that you used to put on top of the houses. We have that one as well. We don't like to use that one. This is a little more fancy, better looking. But this is it. This is what we use to come out and find you. We always, you see it, I don't know if y'all saw me, when I first came in, I put fresh batteries in, right? We never leave the batteries in. That way we know when we jump out, we've got batteries that are going to work. So all we have to do is pop it in and go. So basically, when we start out, this is the sound that we're going to hear, which is nothing, right? It's just white noise, just basic white noise. If you would, walk around for me. Once we get your receiver number, your transmitter number, once we put it in, Y'all notice that sound changes? So clearly, the specific number that's been assigned to our client is picking up, right? Notice the sound changes. If I kind of move away, it's not going to be as loud. This is a big room, so it's not a big difference. But it gets a little more distinct the closer I get. This is why most of our ground searches, they're good for up to about a mile on the ground. We can utilize highway patrol and air search using highway patrol, which we've never done. That broadens the search to about 50 miles. We do have antennas that we can place on the car, so let's say you've been moving, and we don't get the call till 15 minutes later. We can start in the vehicle using antennas and do a search from the vehicles at first, and then once we get a little closer to the area that you may be or that last saw you, we can branch out on foot and then jump out by hand. We've got a couple of devices, so we can get a couple of people out. We can kind of triangulate, which also works well, but as it gets closer, you hear the sound kind of changes a little bit. So it's getting louder. It's like finding a needle in a haystack. But so you see the sound changes when it's not near her. Yes, Miss Nancy has it. But just want to show you how easy it is. It doesn't take a lot. It's not, it's not a lot to it. The only thing we ask when we sign you up, we ask that the caregivers do a daily check on them. Every caregiver is given a tester. Miss Nancy, can I see the one in your, there we go, let's see this one. And every day that you test it, you should get a red light. That way we know that battery works. We change the batteries every 60 days, however the batteries last longer than 60 days. Why? Because we're human, things happen, we sometimes miss that 60-day window, which is a good thing to know. But that's all we ask, that the caregiver checks that battery every day, that caregiver takes care of that transmitter and makes sure that they are wearing it. Unfortunately, we have some that take advantage of the program. They'll have it on them. They'll be like, oh, I'm tired. My kid doesn't want it on. So they take it off and they throw it in a drawer somewhere. That's not helping your loved one, is it? It's the pieces aren't quite inexpensive. They're on the expensive side, which is why we don't have as many. We are working on getting more units. A lot of people say, oh, well, I've got the AirTag, or what about GPS? GPS is all electronic, right? What do you have to do with GPS? You have to plug it in to charge it. So if you plug it in to charge it, that means it's not on your loved one for however long it takes to charge. Let's say while it's charging, you're having dinner, your loved one, while it's charging, it's like, oh, look, let me go outside. Now they're outside without that GPS on them. With Project Lifesaver, with this transmitter, it stays on them. It stays on them. But it's just as simple as that. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Waterproof is the transmitter.
It is waterproof.
Take a shower with it.
You can do everything with it. There is a seal. The way it's designed, and I don't know if y'all looked at the back of it, those holes, you can't find that key anywhere unless we give you one or you happen to acquire one from us somehow. The key is very different. It's not designed like any other key, so getting it off, you've got to be brilliant to figure out how to screw that off. There's an O-ring on it that creates a great water seal on it. Usually when we come change it, we come with gloves and wipes because we're wiping it down because, again, we're dealing with a lot of kids, right? It's going to have all types of dirt, crown, marker, outside play dirt, sand, everything on it. So we make sure we clean it off real good. When we open it up, sometimes we'll change the O-ring on it. Sometimes we'll oil it up, make sure it's good to go. But there is a great water seal on it as well. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. No, it'll go on the wrist, or for some, if having something on their arms is irritating. Even for the kids, we have put them on ankles. On their ankle. So we'll leave it loose enough that you can slide socks on, you can get boots on top of it. We have some kids that are so tiny, we can't put it on the wrist, but the ankle is very sufficient. I think the youngest we had in was maybe 4 or 5. There's no age restriction on it. There's no age. I mean, if they are prone to wander and we can get that transmitter on them, then they can be in the program.
The numbers that you gave earlier, over 4,000,
Yes, ma'am.
that was not just Durham.
No, thank goodness. No, that's a, I'm not going to say nationwide, that is a worldwide number.
Okay.
Because Project Lifesaver is international. Yes.
And so how many roughly people do you have registered in Durham?
Right now, we only have 10. Like I said, we've been limited on the number of transmitters that we have acquired so far. That number fluctuates. It depends on if our clients happen to move, if they get placed into assisted living homes or centers or something like that, or if they pass away, unfortunately.
And is there information on here about where?
There is not. I used to tell people that donations were above my pay grade. However, after speaking with someone on the Project Lifesaver website, there is a place to send donations. But I asked on a more local level. We have a program with the Sheriff's Office called Badges Stands Up. It's kind of our women's auxiliary. They are our, I think, is it 501c3? Yes. I was told that we can make donations through Badges Stand Up and earmark it for Project Lifesaver, and that is how we can get the donations.
This is going to be for Q&As.
I wasn't even thinking that. I'm sorry. Yes.
The program is funded, how is it funded?
Um,
Because it's free for the family.
yes, it is free for the family. Right now, the program is funded through the budget of the Sheriff's Office. So, you know, when you're dealing with budgets, everybody is limited in what areas and what they're allowed, which is why we're limited right now in the number of transmitters that we have.
Would
So
you
every now and then I try to slide in and make requests for more.
give us again the name of the organization for people who want to make contributions?
Badges Stand Up.
Badges Stand Up.
Yes, ma'am. Badges Stand Up.
And designate it for Project
Project
Lifesaver.
Yes, ma'am.
And I want to reiterate that if you don't wander and you don't think you personally need this, think of your neighbors. Because we certainly have had incidents here at Carolina Arbors with people who have gone wandering. And if you know who they are or have a neighbor there, you can talk to them about this, or you can talk to their family about this, or you can call the sheriff's office and they will send someone out to visit with the
We will.
person and suggest this as an alternative. I mean, you can save someone's life. It's that basic.
As long as they live in Durham County, and if they don't, we can check whatever agency where they reside and see if they have it, just to make sure that they can get set up on the program.
Okay, so I see someone wondering,
Uh-huh.
and my name is Janice
Let me-
Williams.
give-
I work for, I need a mic, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I always say I have a hog calling voice from Alabama, so I always thought I was loud enough. I'm Janice Williams. I've worked as a social worker before I retired, over 40 years in Durham
Happy Social
County.
Workers Month.
Yeah, and yes, yeah. So, what if I see someone, so I just want an example. So I see someone wondering, they don't have a transmitter.
Right.
What can I do?
Of course, once you call the police, once we find out from the family, ask them, hey, does this happen often? If it does, you can tell them about the program.
Okay,
Because
okay,
some people know about it, some do not.
right.
And of course, the more we talk about it, the more people are going to be aware. Because again, you're looking at 30 minutes compared to 4 or 5 or a never find.
Right,
You know,
4 or
4 or
5
5
hours or
hour
4 or
fines
5 days.
Yes.
Okay. And I heard you. Would you call 911 and say, I have like a non-emergency emergency?
If somebody's out wandering or possibly missing, that's an emergency.
Okay.
Because think about it, if your loved one is missing,
I
that's an
would think
emergency to
so.
you, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
it
so if
is.
you find somebody out wandering, they're,
Yes.
they don't have clear thoughts, they don't know
Okay.
where they are, that's an
Okay.
emergency. That is
Okay.
definitely an emergency.
Very good, yeah. I used to live on a main street here, Fayetteville Street.
yeah.
And I had neighbors, because I was on the street as opposed to back in the neighborhood, who were in their 90s. And people would bring one of my neighbors back down the street. They'd say, she was wondering, do you know where she lives? She keeps
Wow.
pointing down here. So I did learn that, but it would have been wonderful to have that program. Of course, that was probably 20 years ago, but it would have been wonderful to have something like that.
And I have a personal interest because I had a loved one who had Alzheimer's and dementia. So for me, seeing what she went through, not knowing about this program, not knowing that there was someone or something there that could have helped us, the number of times that she wandered off, it makes a big difference.
It does.
It makes a
Yeah.
big difference.
Thank you. Anyone else? John? Okay.
I have a scenario from history where an uncle who had Alzheimer's, and he drove himself out of the state. And nobody knew where he was and how he got there. How does he had a Lifesaver transmitter, could you search multiple states to find it even though you didn't know where it was?
That's going to be a little harder because he is mobile. The one thing I have suggested, because we've had a few that didn't want to get involved in a program, we have suggested the air tags. So if you have a family member that, they're still able to drive, they're still able to maybe work or at least go out, I have suggested that they take like the air tags, put them in their wallet, put them in their car where they won't know it, won't find it. At least that way you have some type of tracking device on them. So, unfortunately, Project Lifesaver won't work in that matter because they're driving. And this gentleman, he had been retired for years. In his mind, every day when he got up, he was supposed to go to work, and he would drive, he drove a delivery truck. Every time he's left, he has driven the route that he drove, which included to the beach. So he would drive to Wilmington, to Wilson, he would make his way around, and then come back home.
And who responds to the air tag? So they call and say, you've got an air
You would, because it's a personal. You know how they have the Apple air tags now? I'm not an iPhone user. I'm a Droid lover. But with Apple, Apple AirPods have these little tags now where you can locate luggage or, find your keys or something like that. But they make generic ones now too. So, which I think are a lot cheaper, but so you can buy a generic one now that just connects to your mobile phone.
Shouldn't the DMV be aware of the people who really shouldn't be driving?
They should, and there's actually a driver recertification form that used to be circulating. I don't know if it's still out, but that's up to the family to say, hey, my loved one does not need to be driving. Can you take their driver's license? But just because we take your driver's license doesn't mean that they won't find the keys and take the keys, because that happens a lot as well. We'll get something like, well, we locked the keys up, but they know how to get into the safe, and they got the keys out and still took the car. So it happens.
What we did with my mother, who was never a good driver, even going back to my childhood, but as she got to about 90-ish, she's now about to be 107, but she was 90-ish, and she would just admire the flowers as she was driving or something. So what we did is we told her that my daughter desperately needed a car, and she would, of course, give the car to her granddaughter. And my daughter said, I don't need a car, I have a car. I said, shut up, just say thank you. Just say thank you for the car, grandmother. But I think that's it. You just have to take the car away. Having a driver's license could be handy for ID, but having the keys to the car is not good.
So I will leave some pamphlets in case you have some neighbors that may have missed it, or if you have some family members or just other people in Durham that you may know. I'll leave pamphlets. I'm going to leave some applications as well. And if y'all happen to run out of applications or you can't get your hands on one, just reach out.
And Amy has kindly volunteered to sort of keep track of these for us, so that if you if you need an application now or in the future for yourself or for, well, if you need it for yourself, you probably don't need it. But if you need it, if you need it for someone else, or you want to refer a neighbor or something, Amy will have some in her office. And that's probably the handiest way to find them. So anyone, I'm sure, from Lifestyle will be able to get them for you. But we are very grateful to them for their assistance in this project. Any other questions? I think we just thank you. We really thank you. We thank the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office has been wonderful to Carolina Arbors, and we really appreciate it.
And if you see any of our cars riding around, stop them. So, especially if you have any questions,
They
just stop
even
them and
come
say,
for
hey.
our golf cart parades. There's another thing coming up. Amy has arranged, it's one of my favorite things of all, which is the outdated medication collection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's coming up in April, am I right, Amy? Something like that, yeah. But it's on OCA, so you can find it. But to get rid of all the old stuff that isn't safe to use anymore, and you don't want to dispose it into wastewater, so or garbage. And they pick it up and safely dispose of it. So that's, I think, a wonderful thing, too, that you do. They do a lot of good things for us. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all for allowing me to come in and
Thank you.
talk to you.